Alright everyone, welcome back to another Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes video with Fat Phil, and in today's video I want to rank all of the Grand Arena Omicrons that are currently in the game. I want to put this out there as just a guide for, my player, the people following here, right? I want to make sure that you guys understand, each of the little inner workings of the Omicron, not necessarily reading you guys kits, but more so their actual uses and what teams you need to take advantage of those specific Omicrons. Before I get into my list, if you haven't already, please smash that subscribe button, leave a like, leave a comment. It's been really cool getting to chat with you guys in the comments section, give you little pointers or have you guys kind of come back and criticize videos a little bit. I think it's fantastic and I really appreciate all the support we've been getting on the channel lately. So let's go in here and let's get to our first Omicron that we want to look at, and that is Wampa. So why is Wampa the, in my opinion, best Omicron in the game? It just comes down to the fact of cost. He's a requirement for Jedi Knight Luke, right? At Relic 3, he's a requirement. I took mine up to Relic 5 just to make him a little bit better. I've seen people with Relic 8s, Relic 9s on Wampa. He's just a fantastic character. He does so much inside of Grand Arena, and because he solos teams. And that's why I have him on this top spot, is that he not only meets the requirements of being like a Galactic Legends character, I guess Jedi Knight Luke, not really, but you need Jedi Knight Luke for Jedi Master Luke, so inadvertent requirement for Jedi Master Luke, but more so, you're gonna have to get him at some point in the game if you want all the Galactic Legends, so throwing an Omicron on him just makes it a no-brainer. He is soloing teams, and he takes something, he's a character that you would gear up for your Galactic Legend and you wouldn't get any use out of, now is soloing teams. He is just so good in the game right now. All right, so the next tier we have here, I call it the God tier. Now, these are characters who, I would say have great Omicrons. They do either require some, outside investment in other teams, or in the case of SWGOH Press, where he's similar to Wampa, where he, he can really solo things. With SWGOH Press, the difference is he actually, you almost kind of need to build him separately. He's not a requirement for any part of the game. So he's something that, if you get him, cool, but otherwise, he's, something you're going to have to build on the side. He's not because Qui-Gon Jinn here, because you got Jedi Master Kenobi, you'll have a Relic Qui-Gon Jinn. So we'll go through this team real quick. Qui-Gon Jinn is in here just because he's a Jedi, right? You get plenty of Jedi through Jedi Master Kenobi, but he just turns this team into a defensive nightmare. You don't need him at Relic levels for this Omicron to work, because he's just there to die and then boost your team's offense, boost their damage. It's really, really cool to see. Obviously, the more offense he has, the better, but really, you're just trying to get Jedi Knight Anakin to start one-shotting people. All right, so next is Starkiller. So he requires a lot of investment. The characters for him, they're pretty good. They all serve a purpose in the game, some more than others. But he does require a lot of outside investment. But he can beat Galactic Legends. Rey in 3v3, mine held against Kylo, mine held against Jedi Master Luke. He's just a phenomenal Omicron. He does have 3. I currently have 2 of them. I have not put this one on yet, where basically, it is a very good one. I just have been kind of waiting on Omicrons because they're harder for me to come by. I'm not wailing on characters, so I'm not getting them at the end of those marquee events. So just trying to save up my Omicrons and see where best I can use them, especially since I plan on giving Darth Malgus his 3 when I unlock him. So then, leading into Darth Malgus, he is basically a Galactic Legend level. There are very few teams in the game right now who are non-Galactic Legend and beating him consistently. So he's a no-brainer. He does completely take away your Sith Empire. So that is something to keep in mind, that while you are getting him, right, and you're putting him, he is taking away your Sith Empire team. So that is something to keep in mind, that, yes, he's very good, but you are losing a team that you would either, maybe you already had them on defense or you're using them on offense, but he doesn't really create his own team in 5v5. He just kind of takes a slot of a character that was already in there. And then finally, SWGOH Press. I'm actually going to give him his leader just because this may come in handy at some point. But So he's my most recent Omicron. He can solo teams. I've actually seen where he's soloed, I believe, Sith Eternal. Now, if you're putting Sith Eternal on defense, Wampa will also beat that. So I really don't, doing things like this where you put Sith Eternal on defense, not a fan of. But again, he's a solo character. I don't know that he'll be able to beat some of the variety of teams that Wampa does, but I do think that he's going to be a fantastic Omicron. He is, again, meant to be a solo. You can use him with Darth Maul. He's a character that I'm kind of seeing as you're taking a team like Darth Maul that would have been like a joke on defense to making it a much tougher team on defense, or on an offensive standpoint, getting use out of characters that you otherwise wouldn't have had in the game. So I think he's well worth the Omicron, and I'm really excited to see how he pans out for me in 5v5. All right, so the next category here, we'll start going through them faster, is amazing but, right? So this tier means that these are all amazing Omicrons, but they require significant outside investment. The Admiral, we'll start with Dash Rendar. So Dash, you need scoundrels, particularly Vandor Chewbacca, with prepared to continually get those revives. Without them, Dash is still good, he's just not worth the Omicron, because the Omicron is what continually gives people prepared, right? So unless you're using the prepared squad, this Omicron is pointless. And so that's why he's in this amazing but category, that he's amazing, but you need the prepared crew. Next, we have Admiral Raddus. This is another one where it's amazing, but you need Rogue One. Now, if you're getting Profundity, then absolutely he's worth the investment, but I wouldn't put it on him unless you've got that Rogue One team up and ready to go. There are much better ways to spend your Omicrons. And then we have Iden Versio last here. This is another amazing, but she needs all of the leftover Imperial troopers that do not have a leader tag. So unless you have all of them built up, she can still be good at lower gear levels, but she definitely loses a lot of her juice at that level, where she's really only an offensive team at that point, because defensively, the lower gear on her, she just opens herself to a ton of counters, where I've faced a couple low gear ones where I've soloed them with General Skywalker, right? I'm going to solo you with Skywalker, or I can bring in the Sith trio and I don't even need to worry, right? She's one of those that you definitely need that investment to get her into this amazing tier. So that's why she's down here. It just kind of comes with the fact of the overall investment needed for her. All right, so then we have this solid category. And you see I only have two Omicrons here. So the first one is First Order TIE Pilot. This is, again, one of those that you are taking a character who otherwise was completely pointless and at least giving them a use. In 3v3, I would say this Omicron is actually a lot better. I think in 5v5, you kind of lose a little bit of it because that First Order team isn't necessarily the greatest on defense, and so then you're kind of forced into using them on offense, and the best First Order characters go with Kylo. There's a whole laundry list of things here that kind of lead into why he's just a solid Omicron. In the early game especially, I think this Omicron is really worth it, because if you follow my farming guide, you're going to get the First Order. This is a fantastic Omicron to just give you a better defensive team, give you more offensive viability if you're using them there. It's solid, right? Zam Wessel's the same thing. This is a solid Omicron choice. She definitely has lost a little bit of her initial, I'll say, praise as this game has gone on, because there's other ways people are utilizing bounty hunters than just using the Zam Omicron with them. In 3v3, her Omicron loses a lot of value because it's based on her bounty hunter allies. So in 5v5, this is a great Omicron. In 3v3, it's okay. So that's why we're in this, solid tier that, if you have it, it's good, but it's not one that you're going to, like a Wampa where you're completely getting a whole nother team. With Zam, she might make the bounty hunters better, but without it, they can still get work done, right? All right, so then we're going to go into the next tier here, which I am going to call good, but before I cover this tier, if you're still watching, go ahead and put in the comments that Wampa is the real MVP. You guys have watched me a little bit, I love Wampa, so go ahead, put Wampa as the real MVP if you're still watching right now. So then in this good but tier, we're going to start with Admiral Akbar, and then we have Princess Leia. So these two go hand in hand. I have the Admiral Akbar Omicron. It's, good, but you really need some additional outside investment in characters like Stormtrooper Han to be really relevant. It's not a bad Omicron, but I wouldn't say it's, the best Omicron in the game, right? There are much better ones. It can trip people up. I have tripped people up with this Omicron before. It's one that I think is, if you've kind of gone for that Jedi Master Luke and you're looking for an Omicron, this is a potential home. I wouldn't rush to get it, but it can be good, right? There are ways that if you put that investment in, you can make a really good team here that can trip a lot of people up. And that's why Leia and Akbar are kind of in this good but, is that there's a lot of potential as long as you make all of that investment. And then we have Asajj Ventress in the same category. Night Sisters outside of Asajj are not required for anything in the game. They're a great team if you invest in them. There's a lot of, they have a lot of uses, but because they're not needed for anything, it's kind of a passion project farm, right? They're a team that you can get up, and so her Omicron can be really good. I just think that there are better Omicrons that will benefit your team with relic levels than this one, right? Like, you really need relic levels on your Night Sisters to be benefiting from this. So this is just one of those instances where I think that it's smarter to invest in some of the other Omicrons we've mentioned before you have relic Night Sisters. All right, so then the next tier here is luxury or limited. So like Chrysanthemum is going to be a luxury Omicron, right? Like, I don't think you'll really need it, but it could make that team better, right? Same with like Darth Talon, that's really a luxury Omicron because you probably, unless you're solely using her with the Sith Triumvirate, they don't really need her Omicron. It could be good, right? But you don't really need it in there. It's a luxury. And then limited here with Director Krennic just means that he's taking away Death Trooper, and Death Trooper is a better in the Iden team than he is under Director Krennic. So that's why I kind of say it's limited, that like unless you don't have Iden, you don't ever plan on using her, you don't really need Director Krennic's Omicron, right? There's not a lot in it that, helps you more so than putting Death Trooper with, Iden Versio. So that's just kind of my opinion on his Omicron, is that Krennic's already not really a great character, and his Omicron isn't going to make him any more useful. So it's kind of a luxury that if you have the ability, might be worth it, but otherwise I wouldn't worry about it. All right, so we have the trash tier. So this is Ewoks and Rose Tico. Ewoks could be a little bit more controversial, that, they can be, useful, but there's just so many counters to this Ewok Omicron. Like, you can solo it with certain teams, right? Like, there's a lot of stuff that it just kind of falls apart on. This can be a really trap team, right? If people don't know how to battle this Omicron, I just think that it's lost a lot of value because of how many characters, can beat this consistently, right? So it's just one that I think it's much better to maybe not get, because they're not really a good team. They lose a lot of value later on down the road. So investing in this Omicron, to me, is just not worth how expensive they are to get. Rose Tico, I don't need to say anymore that she is probably one of the worst she's probably the worst Galactic Legend requirement character. She's terrible. If she wasn't a pilot, she'd probably be on par to be the worst character in the game. So I really think that, her Omicron I'm not going to ever really use her for anything but her ship. So Omicron is just pointless, and we're done with her. That's making me sick just looking at her. So then we have Tuscan Raider here, where this Omicron only works in 3v3 GAC. And that is just so problematic, right? That this is only in 3v3. So, that is just such limited use that there's really no point. I don't want to say there's no point. He could be very good in 3v3, but you're only using him, half of the time. So are those Omicron mats really worth you being able to use him every other GAC, right? I just don't think so. I just don't think he's worth, if this was maybe just WoW and Grand Arena and you would just take 3 Tuscans in against a team, I think this Omicron could potentially get better. But because it's only in 3v3, I just don't see the upside to it. It's not, for the players that I make these guides for, this is not worth your time. And then lastly, we have the too soon category. So Ben Solo is going to have some Grand Arena Omicrons, right? And, you know, where his attacks ignore protection here. And I think this one, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but it's just a little bit too soon to tell you where he fits in. I have a feeling he'll probably be in that God tier, just for thinking of the teams that he can go with, GL Ray, Jedi Training Ray. Like, I really think he's going to be a really good character, but I don't want to tell you to, you know, put these on him right away if you're getting Ben Solo and then him be bad, right? So it's a little bit too soon to figure out if he's going to be worth it or not, but definitely something that we'll look to update in the horizon. But that's the end of the video, guys. If you are still watching, thank you so much. Make sure you leave a like, leave a comment, and lastly, subscribe to that channel, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.